This is exciting, isn't it?
Here we go, guys, in 5, 4, 3.
Here we go.
It's time for Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive.
Thank you for good programming. I appreciate the content and really enjoyed every moment.
It's a privilege to have you on your station and listen. It's good stuff. It's very educational.
It's time for Joan Esposito on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
You thought it was Patty Vasquez. You thought she was the only one who could drive it home. Now you know I can drive it home, too. Thanks so much for being here. It is Friday. Yay. You've gotten through another week. Hey, before I start rambling, I want to talk about something you just heard at the top of the hour. You know how Elise Stefanik, who... in a long ago interview with Adam Kinzinger, maybe it was even that documentary about Kinzinger. Anyway, Kinzinger said that when he got to Congress, one of the people he really liked was Elise Stefanik. Thought she was, very reasonable, very straightforward, very focused on doing what's right. And he said, I don't know what happened to her. It is like she lost her mind. Or, as other people put it a little more crudely, she saw the way the wind was blowing and decided that the only way to really fulfill her ambitions was to get on the Trump train. He said that her becoming MAGA, Kinzinger said that Elise Stefanik becoming a real MAGA supporter was one of the most disappointing, head-scratching things that he had seen in his time in government. And, basically he was saying she knows better. I know she knows better. Well, that second up to Trump looked like it was going to pay off. Elise Stefanik had been tapped to move from Congress to representing the United States in the United Nations. That was, Trump rewards those people who really polish his shoes the shiniest. Except, what happened, you say? Yes, there's a slim margin of majority for the Republicans in Congress, but they still have it. And Elise Stefanik, she defeated her opponent quite handily. I think it was something like, 15 or more points. She defeated the Democrat who ran against her, so that would seem to be a pretty safe red congressional district. Elise Stefanik moves to the UN. There's a special election to fill her seat. But do we really have any reason to think that voters there would put anybody but another Republican in that seat? When Elise Stefanik won that seat handily. Well, there might just be, because there's a little state house race in Pennsylvania that has sent shockwaves through the Republican Party. In a Pennsylvania state Senate race, it was a special election to fill this state Senate seat in the Pennsylvania State House. Nobody was too concerned about this particular race because this particular district, this particular Senate district had never in its entire history been won by a Democrat. Always Republicans, no matter who's in the presidency, no matter who else is in the state house, no matter who's the governor, this Pennsylvania Senate seat always in its history went Republican. In this special election, Democrat James Andrew Malone won that seat, a seat that a Democrat hasn't represented in over 136 years, a seat that should have been a gimme for the Republican Party. Democrat James Andrew Malone won the special election and will now be going to the state Senate in Pennsylvania, representing a district that has virtually never, ever, ever voted for a Democrat. It's a little race. You may have completely missed it, but this race has sent shockwaves through the Republican Party. There are some special elections for Congress coming up, and most people were writing them off because, again, they were all congressional special elections in districts that are considered red, that vote Republican. One of those elections, there's two of them in Florida, but one of those elections in Florida is making Republicans very nervous because elections that really should have been a layup for them, a no-brainer for them, are now looking competitive. People, not just Democratic people, Republican people, are starting to get really ticked off by what they see happening. Even people who voted for Trump will tell you, for the most part, they didn't vote for this. They didn't vote for this chaos. And they didn't vote for elected representatives that appear absolutely powerless to try to forget about stopping. They seem powerless to even slow down the chaos. You may not have heard of this particular Senate seat, but I promise you, the Republican Party heard about this race. When an area that has virtually its entire history never, no matter what the prevailing issues of the day were, no matter who was in power, who was out of power, this area voted Republican. Not this time. And probably James Andrew Malone had a lot to do with Elise Stefanik, who has now seen all that sucking up go to waste, being said, oh, did you hear Donald Trump? Oh, she knows how important it is. She's so great to do this for us. Like she had a choice. He pulled it. He pulled the nomination. She didn't go to him and say, oh, I'm really worried about Congress. I think maybe I should stay there. She didn't do that. Republican and Donald Trump don't think he's paying attention either because he doesn't like the actual work parts of being president. But you can be assured that Republicans probably went to Susie Wiles and said, look, we are potentially in trouble here. He has a very narrow margin in the House of Representatives, and we're nervous about some of these races. You can't count on the fact that even though Elise Stefanik crushed her Democratic opponent, they're so mad at us now, we can't be sure that a special election wouldn't put a Democrat in that seat. So if Donald Trump wants to continue to have his rubber stamp, and he does, you can't let Elise Stefanik go to the United Nations. And may I just say that I'm sure Ms. Stefanik is very unhappy about this. Very unhappy about this. Why did I betray my values to become one of this guy's lieutenants, and I'm not going to get any reward? No, Elise. No, you're not going to get any reward. And if the Democrats take back the House in the next election, you are going to be in a position where you gave up who you were and what you believed in for nothing. Hey, at least Marco Rubio. Okay, Marco Rubio gave up everything he believed in, turned his back on everything, is like some sort of pod person these days. But at least he got Secretary of State. I mean, he has to keep going to the microphone and saying things like, oh, you know, we have free speech, but if you're on a student visa, you better not think you get free speech. No, you do not get free speech. Because if you say something that we don't like, that visa is gone. By now, I'm sure you've seen the video of that Rhodes Scholar student from, I believe it's, where is she from? She's, long story short, she was attending Tufts, award-winning student on a student visa, co-authored an op-ed that had something to say that Donald Trump didn't like. You know, he's very thin-skinned, so it doesn't take much to be construed as criticism. She co-authored some opinion piece in the school newspaper. And plainclothes agents wearing hoodies, who, by the way, put up their hoods and put on face masks. Kids, if you really believe in what you're doing, if you really think taking this young woman into custody is a legitimate, good thing that you are doing, why exactly are you covering your face like you're some sort of bank robber? I mean, if you've seen the video, it's horrifying. They're all wearing these hoodies. They pull up their hoods and they put on face masks to load this seemingly shocked young woman up and cart her away. And before a judge could rule that she needed due process, suddenly she was in Louisiana. Oh, sorry, Judge, we've already shipped her to Louisiana. We didn't know you were going to rule that we should keep her here. Really sorry. Because, you know, the transportation only works one way. We can take them to Louisiana, but we can't bring them back. So, we are going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to start reading your texts, opening up the phone lines, talking. It's Friday. We're going to talk about the news of the day for the first half of the show. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of a respite with Pet of the Month. And then after that, we are going to talk about how important it is to have the arts as part of your life right now. Everybody needs something to relieve their stress. And for a lot of people, the arts are offering that pressure valve. We're going to talk with award-winning poet Mark Turcotte, our good friend, actor, artist, poet Tony Fitzpatrick. We'll be back with more after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
The phone lines, it would probably be helpful if I actually shared the phone number. Yeah, I know, crazy, huh? 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. I got a texter who said that I was mistaken, that Elise Stefanik barely won victory to Congress in this last race. That's not what the reporting shows. The Associated Press in that race declared Stefanik the winner with more than 60% of the district's reporting results. And the final estimate was believed to be that she was going to win with 60% of the vote over her challenger. And, you know, here Stefanik easily wins sixth term. The reporting, this was her sixth term, clearly, with that headline. But by most accounts, It was one of our news articles said she cruised to victory. There have been other closer races, but this last one was not one of those. Her seat is in New York, the 21st congressional seat. And that might surprise you. You think of New York as a blue state. But just like in California, there are very, very, very red parts of blue states. Our very own Illinois is a perfect example of that. A couple of things I want to share with you as we are getting going today. Signalgate continues. Don't think because I haven't mentioned it yet that it has blown over. And there are Republicans, especially Republicans in the Senate, who now want an investigation into just what happened and how it happened and who is responsible. People are still calling for Pete Hegseth to resign because Hegseth is the one on this third-party app who was texting all the plans. Yeah, here's where the F-18s are going to go. Here's when they're going to go there. Here's the kind of ordinance they're going to use. Oh, hey, we just saw him walk into an apartment building. Yeah, let's crush the apartment building. Hegseth is the one that put all the classified material into this text chain. Mike Waltz, who's Trump's security advisor, formulated the text chain. He was the admin. Supposedly, when the editor-in-chief of Atlantic Monthly magazine was inappropriately and inadvertently added to the text chain, the invitation came from M. Waltz. Mike Waltz went on Fox and said, you know what? My bad. I'm sorry. Donald Trump has been asked repeatedly whether or not he's going to ask for Hegseth's resignation. And he keeps saying, well, Hegseth, he didn't do anything wrong. It was Mike Waltz. And Mike Waltz is the one who went on Fox and apologized. Mike's the one who did something wrong, right? Right? No? He loves Hegseth. Hegseth is pugnacious. Hegseth wants to fight with everybody about everything. And the journalist, Jeffrey Goldberg, who wrote the initial article, followed up the next day with the entire text chain. Because basically they were saying, there was nothing classified. There was nothing inappropriate. So he shared the whole text chain with all of the intel, with all of the timing, with all of the munitions and personnel. It was all there. And if that isn't classified information, posting apparently 2 hours before the attack, where you're going to attack, who you're going to attack, how you're going to attack them. Ooh, we're very, very lucky that the pilots flying in that ordnance weren't shot down. Very lucky. CBS Evening News sat down with Jeffrey Goldberg to talk to him about, hey, that group chat, you published the whole thing. Why did you decide to do that? Because at first, as I said, when he first was added to the text chain, he thought it was a prank. And then he thought it was some Republican trying to lure him out, like give him a feeling that he was in on something, and then ask him questions where he would reveal information or sources or something, because Republicans have done that with journalists before. And it was only after he saw the plans for the attack, and then the attack happened exactly how it had been described in the text chain, that he knew or suspected strongly it was real. So he reached out to the spokesperson for the National Security Agency, and that guy said, yeah, this really does look like it's real. We're not sure how you got added to it. But as soon as he realized that it was real, he had the ethics to take himself off of it. They never discovered he was on it. Nobody asked him who he was, why he was there. He took himself off the text chain. I want to share with you the exchange. Again, this is CBS Evening News interviewing Jeffrey Goldberg about why he published what he published. Listen to this.
You published an article on Monday.
Yeah.
And withheld certain details.
Yeah.
You published more on Wednesday.
Right.
Why did you publish what you published?
Because of Tuesday. Because on Tuesday, the President of the United States said there's nothing classified or sensitive in the emails, in the texts, and because various other national security officials said the same thing. So what we did yesterday was, given that information, we went to the agencies, CIA, DOD, DNI, et cetera, and said, you guys have said there's nothing classified or dangerous in here. We're just double checking with you. Is there anything that you believe for national security reasons we should redact? The CIA asked us to redact something, and we did. No other agency asked. The White House spokeswoman gave us a kind of boring, generic kind of, we wish that you wouldn't do this, but, you know, that there's nothing classified here. It shouldn't even go into that area. So the reason to post it is because I think people should see for themselves. They're saying nothing happened. I'm saying that this represents a serious breach in national security and communications. And so, you know what? That's what journalism is for. Here, go look at it for yourselves and decide if this represented a serious breach of secrecy and national security.
Jeffrey Goldberg explaining after the government started insisting, it was no big deal, little tiny oopsie, no confidential material, no classified material, when clearly there was. By the way, part of the reason it is suspected that they were using this third-party app is because this third-party app Signal disappears. You can set it. The messages you send on Signal will disappear sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks. So there's no record. There's nothing to subpoena, nothing for the National Archives, nothing for Democrats to use against a Trump administration. We are going to take a break. We're going to start in with your calls right after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
It is Friday. We always spend the first half of the day taking your calls, reading your texts, talking about the news of the day. So I want to thank you for your contributions and repeat the number because I have been reminded that I don't say the number often enough. 773-763-9278. If you are thinking of being a first-time caller, here's an easy way to remember it if you don't have a pencil. 773-763 WCPT. Let's go to our good friend Jim from Chicago. Good way to start a Friday. Hello, Jim.
Hi, Joan. P.D. Keel's creation has just been given the assignment to be cultural director at the Smithsonian. Now, you know that they're attempting apartheid in the continent of Africa. And what they intend to
that's
do
the one. Yeah, I remember seeing that former supporter of apartheid gets appointed to this post. Yeah.
Yeah, and J.D. is going to go in. I don't know what credentials he has as art critic or historian critic, but he's going to go into the Smithsonian and pick and choose which exhibits will exist and won't exist. If that isn't insane enough as it is, then you mentioned earlier, these people dressed up as secret police, and the only people getting employment, in the administration is the ICE and the secret police. And Joan, I could give you one more compliment. Monday's broadcast was terrific. You were right on top of this story, and it developed all during the week. And the other one was the young lady from Salon was like a beautiful music piece to me. She hit, honest to goodness, she hit every note. And
Amanda Marcotte from Salon.com.
Yeah, she was terrific. And
and you know what, Jim? If you have a chance to sign up for her newsletter, she is so funny. She is such a humorous observer of our condition right now. Even she's really, really entertaining.
She sounds like it. And tonight, Jeffrey will be on. He's got a program, Washington Week. It's on at 7:30. I rarely turn up the volume when I watch it. I just look at the topics because I can't take it. But tonight I'll be tuned in at 7:30 Washington Week.
Is that on C-SPAN or is that?
No, it's on channel. Channel 11. It's on public, which Trump was trying to get rid of course.
Yes.
On channel 11 tonight at 7:30. It's Washington Week, and he's usually the monitor. I was supposed to be in chair tonight. But anyway, Joan, you have a great weekend, and here we go. I'll be glad. And if you mentioned to some of the poet and your friend the actor, what do they think of invading the Smithsonian and starting to pick and choose what to put in there? Because
and the Kennedy Center. Let's not forget what he's doing with the Kennedy Center. By the way, I didn't play this because I got some clips from it, but really I loved the whole thing. Conan O'Brien was awarded the Mark Twain Prize for Comedy, and he gave the most brilliant, backhanded attack speech for our current political climate. He did his whole speech about who Mark Twain was and what Mark Twain believed and what Mark Twain fought against his whole life. And it was all, Twain did this, Twain said that, Twain wrote about this. But everything he said resonated with what is going on today. It was freaking brilliant. And for those of you, it's like 4+ minutes. And I thought, should I, shouldn't I? Because 4 minutes, as you know, is an eternity in radio. But please, if you guys have nothing to do for a little bit this weekend, just Google it. Conan O'Brien, Mark Twain acceptance speech. I promise you, it will warm your heart.
Yeah, Twain was death on narrow-mindedness. He was death on that.
Yep, and he didn't like bullies, and he stood up to bullies, and it goes on and on and on.
Right. And I made the mistake in college of taking Tom Sawyer as trying to pick apart Tom Sawyer. I went nuts. It took me 2 months to me, but I think during the assignment I was half crazy. But anyway, Joan, you have a great weekend, and thanks for taking my call, Joan. Thank you much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jim. Let's go to our good friend Roosevelt, who is on the line. Hello, Roosevelt.
Joan, thank you for taking my call.
Thanks for calling.
Hopefully you'll have a fantastic weekend.
Well, I'm going to see a play that I've wanted to see since I first read about it tonight. It's at Shakespeare Theater. It's called Sunny Day. It's the story of the Kinks. And I first read about it. It was started, I think it premiered in London. And it was so well done and so popular, and I was reading about it, and I actually tried to get tickets for it in London. I was like, what the heck? We'll fly over there. We'll go see it. But it was completely sold out. And when I saw Shakespeare Theater was doing it, I was so thrilled. So tonight's going to be a great night.
Oh, I hope you have a good time. And they were just a part, if we're talking about the same thing, you're talking about the group from Britain, right?
Yep, the Kinks. So
that was a big British invasion. I grew up with that, Joan, so I remember all the groups. At the very least, back to what you were talking about, Hexteth and Pete and all these guys, I believe that at the very least, Tulsi Gabbard, along with the other idiot, what's his name?
They're all idiots. I don't know which one you mean.
Yeah, that's true. John Ratcliffe and at least them three. Pete, Hexteth.
Ratcliffe is head of the CIA, yeah.
Yeah. And Tulsi Gabbard. Joan, I have a question to ask you. When you lie under oath, isn't that a crime? Isn't that a reason?
Used to be. It would be if you did it, Roosevelt.
Exactly. So when Tulsi Gabbard couldn't answer a question when she contradicted herself, is it classified or is it not classified? Isn't that right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I can't talk about that because we're investigating it, you know. Well, did you use your personal phone or an official government phone? Oh, I'm sorry. You can't even tell us what phone you used. Oh, it's being investigated. I just don't dare say anything.
And you know what, Joan? It reminded me of when I used to go to school in grammar school and the teacher takes roll call. Isn't there such a thing as a roll call in one of these?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Roosevelt, because somebody texted in to me this week, and they said, I was a Navy veteran, and any time there was any kind of meeting, the first thing that would be done is they would take roll call of who was part of the meeting. He said that was like standard operating procedure. You wouldn't start the meeting without taking roll call. And nobody did that. Nobody said, okay, by the way, you know, here's who we've got on this call. By the way, JG. Anybody know who JG is? Hey, JG, who are you? Nope.
Yeah.
None of it happened. Yep.
Well, that's what I wanted to bring up. So, you know, I don't know. To me, we're just constantly lowering the bar when it comes to laws because of the guy we got in the White House, and it's passed on to his flunkies. His flunkies shake it off, too, and especially that Pete Hegseth. I mean, this guy should go. And what is this with Elon Musk going to Wisconsin, giving away $2 million.
Well, you know, it's really funny that you mentioned that. For those of you who don't know, Elon Musk is trying very hard to get Brad Schimmel elected to the Supreme Court. And I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that Elon Musk has a case in the Wisconsin state courts that will probably end up before the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Conflict of interest there. And he has been offering, I think it's $100 if you sign a petition saying that you don't think, these elections should be political or something like that. And then he announced that he was coming to Wisconsin. The only people who were going to get into his rallies were people who could prove that they had voted, and he was going to give a couple of $1 million prizes to some of those in the audience. And all of a sudden, like, the Attorney General was like, you know what, that's not legal. Ben Wickler, who heads the Democrats in Wisconsin, said this is a felony. This is a felony. And there's apparently a really long thread that Wickler posted. This is a felony. Here's the law. Here's what Elon said. This is a felony. He should be arrested if he tries to do this. And that original post that said he was coming to Wisconsin and was going to give away a couple $1 million, apparently that post has been taken down.
Really? Thanks for bringing me up to date, because I was going to say, you know. All right. Well, thank you, Joan. Again, have a nice weekend. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, Roosevelt. We are going to take a break, and we are going to get back to texts and calls right after this.
Don't turn that dial.
A dangerous mistake to make.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, returns right now on WCPT 820.
One of our texters calls himself Teamster Brett, and he posted, I'd be curious what the folks involved in carrying out the mission have to say about this, referring to Signalgate. And I'd be really curious, but I'm afraid, Brett, the only people who are going to know what they really think are probably their spouses, because it is against military rules for anybody in the military to speak out. They are supposed to be nonpartisan. They are supposed to just simply do what they are told to do. And speaking out about something is a good way to end your career very, very rapidly, if indeed you probably would get discharged. But it certainly, the best outcome would be you would never see another promotion for the rest of your service and probably be sent somewhere fairly unpleasant. Let's go back to the phone lines. Our good friend Earl is on the line from Hyde Park. Hello, Earl.
Hello, Joan. I've been listening to the conversation. It's pretty good, and I value all of the opinions that you have put down in your monologue and what the other callers in Texas are putting in. But I hope I can do my thought processes justice, because it's really hard for me to get too upset about what happened with the bombing raid and everything, from the standpoint that I'm glad nobody in our armed forces were hurt. But I think the damage was done long before this particular raid. I think they've been using the phones for we don't know how long, and I think whoever was monitoring, trying to crack into the system, have already been in the system and monitoring what was going on in our cabinet members all along. I don't think that this was a one-off situation. I believe maybe the Russians or the Iranians or the Chinese have already cracked into that conversational thread and have been just listening and compiling information all along. And just because they didn't stop shoot down our planes, that doesn't mean that they didn't crack the code and weren't listening.
Without question. I mean, that's one of the things that former military intelligence guy Malcolm Nance said on Stephanie's show, that, of course, any foreign power is going to try to get access to the telephones of anybody in a position of power. He said, we do it to them. Are we supposed to believe they don't do it to us? And the fact that a lot of them, the guy Witkoff, the supposed envoy to Ukraine, who was on this text chain and was in Moscow, admitted he was on his personal phone. He was on his personal phone using a third-party, non-government secured app to have a conversation about a military operation. And you think Moscow wasn't monitoring that phone? For goodness sake.
And can I add one other thing, and then I'll jump off? Mm-hmm. But we have to remember that the old phrase, I don't know who it was attributed to, what ethnic group, but they always said that the fish rots from the head. And we have to remember that Donald Trump, in his first term, he was communicating with Putin without note takers. He gave up some information on some activity that involved a Israeli spy bragging to Putin. I mean, Trump has no respect for the military. Remember, he called them suckers and stuff like that. And he's in love with Putin for whatever reason. And
yep. And one of the things Earl is referring to here with this love affair with Putin is that I said there was part of the text chain where they said, the guy just walked into his girlfriend's apartment building, and then they collapsed it. They hit it with ordnance and collapsed it. And they say in the text chain that it was human intelligence. And it later was revealed Israel had an agent on the ground in Yemen with eyes on this guy on this building. And that's part of what has now become public. So the people of Yemen, the Houthis in Yemen, now know at the very least, if they can't figure out who was where at what time, they know they have an Israeli spy in their midst. And reportedly, the government of Israel was not happy that was made public. Not happy at all.
Well, let me say this and now I'll jump off. Who amongst our so-called friends are happy with us?
Yeah, really.
We disrespect the European nations. We disrespect our neighbors to the north, our neighbor to the south. I mean, we are stomping all over every alliance that we had.
Yes, we are.
Every goodwill we had. I don't know why anybody would take up arms and fight with us after this knucklehead's last 2 months in office. I mean, what they've been doing is taking a wrecking ball to all our diplomacy. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Earl. I appreciate that call. Let's go back to the phone lines. Our good friend Bobby from Indiana is on the line. Hello, Bobby.
Hello, Joan. Well, this has been one hell of a week. I've been paying attention to the signal fiasco, but I've been running on other tracks, too. This is a little dandy I got today. I got two letters here, both dated March 20th, from the Indiana Family and Social Services Administration. Eligibility notice for health coverage. And this first one is, I get it every year, and I got it, you have been redetermined to be eligible through a special auto renewal process for a 12-month period. Your next redetermination is scheduled for February 2026. Well, that's standard. And then the next letter, also dated the 20th, your health coverage benefits will be discontinued effective May 1, 2025.
What?
So, what? And it gave me a number to call. And I called that number. And, of course, you never talk to a live person. You talk to a Elon Musk automated system. I wish I could have taped that call. My sister, when I told her, I said, I can't begin to explain to you how that went, what direction it went. All I know is they're the ones that clicked off. And I said that's
Unbelievable. This is what Elon Musk is doing, cutting the people who were either talking to folks in person or talking to folks on the phone to try to wade through some of this. I've dealt with Social Security before, and, I get Medicare now, and I'm telling you, I look through those books, your coverage is, A, B, C, but if C is on D, then C doesn't apply to A, and I'm like, oh, my God, I'm not a stupid person. I have a master's degree, and I can't figure this out. It's just...
Well, they've got it, this is Indiana, Medicaid, and it's screwed up as much as the other now. But speaking of Social Security, I've been following that little doji this week. And I don't know if you heard this, but apparently yesterday they were supposed to be sweeping the bank accounts across the nation and, quote unquote, clawing back overpayments from over the years from Social Security.
Remember when this was a big scandal? Terry Savage, I'll have to book her next week. Terry Savage and this other guy exposed this whole thing where Social Security makes mistakes, and then they go back to people and they say, oh, by the way, we overpaid you. You owe us $100,000 and you have 30 days to pay. And it became, Anderson Cooper interviewed them, did a big story for 60 Minutes. And then all of a sudden, Social Security announced that there was going to be, instead of saying, oh, we realize now that 10 years ago we overpaid you, there was going to be like a statute of limitations. Like if they didn't catch it like in the first 6 months or the first year, they were going to have to forgive it. And they made some other changes. Sounds like they're undoing all that. What a shock.
Well, with Goober's kids in there, God knows what kind of mess ups they're going to have. But I called the bank today, and I asked for my balance, and I was 1 penny off. So they hadn't, at least as of today, they hadn't touched it. But my advice to everyone, because I've heard people have been having problems of saying, hey, I always get my social on such and such a date, and I want to get it or called in, and it's not there. And because I've been eliminating all the people to see that it gets out on time, everybody, you know your date. It's supposed to be in there. Before you go in to get it or however you get it, first call your bank and find out if it is indeed there.
Yeah. The other thing that I was advised, I have some friends and they have some of their children who work in government, and they contacted me and they said, go on the Social Security website right now and print out all your information. When you get paid, how much you get paid, every bit of data you can, just in case in the very near future it becomes unavailable. So I did that, I would advise, it can't hurt. It can't hurt us to go on the website and print out all of our stuff. And then it'll be interesting to see if it's how it changes going forward. But I'm telling you, Bobby, if they mess with Social Security like they are trying to do, I think Elise Stefanik not holding on to her seat in a special election is going to be the least of their problems. I think the Republican Party, if they don't start pushing back on Trump, I think it's going to be a very, very good midterm to be a Democrat.
Everybody also needs to badger their, and I call Indiana, my senators, they aren't worth a fart in a windstorm, I'll tell you. But I left messages with both of their offices and told them, about the Social Security situation. And I do, my congressman in the first district is Frank Marvan. And I also got a letter from him today. And interesting statistics, if you would like them, a couple of them.
Sure.
That in the first congressional district for the year 2023, first district has over 162,500 Social Security beneficiaries, plus over 15,300 SSI beneficiaries. That's just the first district alone. So
that's a lot of voters, Bobby. That's a lot of voters.
A lot of voters, dear.
And they better wake up and smell the coffee, because people are ticked. People are ticked. Hey, I'm running out of time. I've got to get to the news here pretty quick. Real quick, the weekend is coming up, and I want you to know that around Chicagoland on Saturday, there are at least 7 different protests planned against Elon Musk as part of this whole Tesla takedown. Saturday has been designated a global day of action. Demonstrations are planned at 500 Tesla dealerships around the country, and at least 7 of those are in the Chicagoland area. So Google Tesla takedown. And the other thing that, if you are so inclined, look to probably Indivisible or the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. There are people who are going to be going to Wisconsin this weekend to knock on doors. This Wisconsin Supreme Court race, Susan Crawford versus Brad Smeagol, is coming up, and Elon Musk desperately wants the full-throated MAGA Brad Schimmel to win. Elon is throwing his weight around, and what a perfect way. You know, if you're going to a Tesla takedown, fine, but what a perfect way to put Elon in his place than making sure that the candidate he has invested money in loses. I don't know. Personally, I think that would be extremely satisfying. What do you think? Okay? Just let me know. We are going to keep the phone lines open and the text line open at least another half an hour. We will be back after the news.
Don't turn that dial.
A dangerous mistake to make.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, returns right now on WCPT 820.
It is Friday. We spend the first half of the show on Friday taking your calls, talking about the news of the day. Let's go to Streamwood, where Tom is on the line. Hello, Tom. Thanks for the call today.
Well, thank you for taking my call, Joan.
You're very welcome. What would you like to talk about?
I've been meaning to call for several months now on 3 films that I watched. One of them was a Netflix documentary called The Family, which explains the elite in our government now. The second was The Godfather 2. And the third I just watched recently was the film Trump tried to ban, The Apprentice.
Oh, how was that? How was that?
Oh, my gosh. Oh, it was incredible. I wondered where he got half the things that he does nowadays. And it's pretty much explained in that movie. It all comes from Roy Cohn. Mm-hmm. That attorney, and I'm telling you, the 3 rules he set down for Trump right off the bat when he first met him was attack, 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 never admit defeat, and then deny, deny, deny. And if that doesn't fit him to a T, I don't know what does.
Even Trump has said that that the way he interacts with the world is based on what he was taught by Roy Cohn. Absolutely, without question. And
Absolutely.
I would, if you're interested in political history and the current history, I made reference a while ago to that Adam Kinzinger documentary. It's called The Last Republican. And I'm not sure where it is it is available right now, but I've got to tell you, I went into it thinking, well, you know, this is political, this is the kind of thing I should be watching. I was riveted. It is so well done, it is so well edited, it is so well put together that all of a sudden it was over and I just couldn't believe it. I mean, it was really well done. So I would add that one to your list, too. But I've got to get out and see The Apprentice.
Wow, I certainly will add that. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
And the one last thing, I wanted to tie those other 2, that Netflix documentary, especially the chapter on the Wolf King. That pretty much deals with Trump. Mm-hmm. And then watching The Godfather 2 after that, you can put everything together.
Yeah, he behaves like a mob boss, doesn't he?
He certainly does.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. I'm so glad you called in today.
All right, well, thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, nice talking to you. Let's now go to Worth, Illinois. Marty is on the line. Hello, Marty. How are you?
Hi there. Thank you for taking my call. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think people should be protesting the Tesla dealerships. If for no other reason, Cybertrucks are literally glued together.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing?
They've had so many product recalls. It's astounding.
It is the most recalled truck in American history.
Yeah, if you wonder why, there's protests at Tesla dealers, you should be focusing on making a better car and not screwing around with the government. Focus on doing what you claim to do well, which you can't even do well. But aside from that, I mean, I also wanted to comment on the Signal Gate, fiasco, and say that they got caught red-handed trying to skirt the Federal Records Act.
Absolutely.
I mean, they want to communicate.
Yep.
I mean, they got caught red-handed discussing this stuff that should be archived and was clearly set to not be archived. So it's like, I mean, that's just so egregious. I mean, if any Democrat would ever do anything like that, they would have had their heads chopped off. This is ridiculous.
That, one of the articles I read, I can't remember if this was a reporter or if it was a Democrat who reported this without saying the name. They had spoken to one of the Republicans in Congress, and they said that if the Department of Defense had done something like this under Joe Biden, not only would Republicans be howling for a resignation, they would be moving to impeach the guy. So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
It would be nice to see Democrats move like that as well.
We need strong leadership. I mean, we need people like Bernie Sanders, AOC. Everybody should be out there fighting oligarchy. Everybody that can stand up for us, that has a voice should be using it.
Oh, and that reminds me, because AOC and Bernie Sanders have been having such success going out and doing rallies, particularly in Republican areas, Chris Murphy is going to be in Michigan. I think it is this weekend, doing much the same thing. He's that firebrand senator from Connecticut who has been howling about what's going on for a very, very long time, since before any other Democrats started being public about what's going on. So there's that. But thank you for the call. I gotta move on. Thank you for joining the conversation today, Marty.
Hydrated.
Thank you. Let's see. I think we have time to squeeze in one or two more calls before we go to break. Let's go to Ron, who's calling from Chicago. Hi, Ron.
How you doing? Yes. Now that Trump is taking over the Kennedy Center, he wants some of his favorite performers to be there. Paul Anka, Johnny Mathis, Sylvester Stallone. He wants a special event for Elvis Presley. He told the trustees that Elvis will be a good sell because he's a dead person.
Yeah, I saw that quote. How bizarre is that? Donald Trump seems to think that honoring dead performers is what the Kennedy Center should be doing. But I wondered about that when I read it. I think he's offended that a lot of the A-listers who are out there don't want anything to do with him. And how else are you going to get A-list stars at the Kennedy Center if nobody will play with you? Why, you go to the dead ones. That's what you do.
You take names out of the cemetery.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right. Mm-hmm. And J.D. Vance and his wife, they wasted their time going to Greenland today.
Yes, they did. And J.D. Vance, she was supposed to go by herself, and suddenly that was canceled. I can only imagine. She and her son were going to go to a dog sled race. And I can only imagine she went to her husband and said, you know what? You're the one who's paid to take the risks. You get out there and go to the dog sled race. But, yeah, he apparently while he was in Greenland today, he told the people of Greenland that Denmark really isn't doing right by them. Denmark really isn't taking care of them the way they should be taken care of.
Right. They wanted to do a photo op with him and his wife. They wanted to have somebody in Greenland welcome them to their house and do a photo op, but nobody wanted them in their house. Just zero. Yeah.
Well, this is supposedly an unofficial visit, and it was announced that they were just going to go to. There's an American Arctic military base. and they were going to go there and inspect it. That's what they were. That's what J.D. Vance and his wife were going to do. They were going to go to the Arctic and inspect that base because it was made clear by the government of Greenland that they were not being invited. There would be no official reception of any kind for them.
Right. And the reason Trump wants Greenland is that because of global warming, the sea lanes are opening up over there, and
that, and also Greenland has a lot of rare minerals.
Right.
You know, he's obsessed with that. You know, trying to get them from Ukraine, trying to get them. Well, he's probably not. Probably Elon told him he should do this. You know, Donald Trump doesn't know a rare mineral from an unrare, common mineral.
No. And one more thing, at the some of the federal employees were fired and then reinstated. When they came back to their offices, there was no lights, the electric was shut off, no chairs, no running water, just a mess.
That is disappointing.
Right, very.
Very disappointing. I wonder if they came back to work in some of those thousands of federal buildings that the Trump administration announced were either going to be rented out or sold. Maybe that's why all the utilities were shut off. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's probably it. That's
probably. Yeah. Right. Ron, thanks for the call. We are going to take a break. We're going to be back with more of your calls and texts right after this.
This is Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
It is Friday. We spend the first half of the show taking your calls and reading your texts. Got an interesting text that kind of echoes a theme we talk about fairly often, and that is messaging. I was commenting earlier this week that it seemed like Signalgate unified Democrats, a number of Democrats, a couple dozen Democrats of prominence were all out there. We're all repeating the same message. This was irresponsible. This was dangerous. Hegseth's got to go. And for the first time in a long time, I heard Democrats pounding away at one thought, one message, because that's what Republicans do, and that's what breaks through. Somebody sent me a picture of a billboard. It just says, Trump and Musk are coming for your Social Security. Doesn't say anything else. And the person who shared it with me said, you know, lying over and over again might brainwash the stupid, but that also works in reverse. If a driver sees the truth over and over again, they just might look into it. Maybe not the first time they see the billboard, but seeing it 8 or 9 times might just make them scratch their heads. That's TJ from Oak Lawn. And I think he's right. And I think that's one of the strengths of the Republican Party. They all gather around one message, and they all repeat it. And, you know, the studies are pretty clear. Whether it's true information, whether it's misinformation, whether it's a lie, or whether it's a fact, you hear it enough times, and even if you don't believe it at first, well, you kind of start to think, well, maybe there's something there. You know, maybe there is something there. It's Psychology 101. Let's go back to the phone lines. Dave from Hoffman Estates is on the line. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Joan. I don't know if anybody's mentioned anything about those 4 soldiers who died in Lithuania. That vehicle.
I saw a story about that, and over this last week, I've tried to follow up, but there hasn't been much reporting. What was it? Wasn't it they found a military vehicle submerged in
15
a small body of water?
Yeah, like 15 feet of water, and right now there's a crew of specialized U.S. Navy dive crew and some unit of Polish Armed Forces engineers are traveling to that site, to that training site in Lithuania to help with the recovery of 4 U.S. soldiers. And that's kind of like, you remember in the first term of Trump when them 4 Rangers or Special Forces guys got ambushed and butchered up in Niger, and Trump was on the phone with that one widow in the car, and so Coley just said he knew what he signed up for, but little did he know that widow had one of her representative was in the car and heard that, and that time, and then going on about with the leaks. Well, remember in Bush's term when none other than Vice President Dick Cheney had outed Valerie Plame, and how many CIA agents...
Was that Cheney? Or was it Bush
Dick
himself
Cheney.
who did it?
They kept saying it was Dick Cheney was the one that outed her.
That was Valerie Plame was a CIA agent, and
correct. Yeah.
they outed her. They just, you know, they said, here's her name, here's what she does, because they were mad.
And they don't know how many of her contacts probably got killed because of that, and that. Or before we got into that, remember talking about on the line. Remember that one idiot had said when they had picked up, intercepted from Bin Laden that time, up on that. I'm drawing a blank right now on that rock, that mount. But it got back to him, and then ever since then, he was only using couriers. The old-fashioned way to carry that stuff, but you know, of course, you got those ones on the right, like that Scott Jennings. I mean, you watch him on that show, and right away he points to, Joe Biden and that Abby Gate, Joe Biden. You know, it's like, of course, he never remembers
I don't understand. I understand wanting to have a dialogue, a panel with differing points of view, but why people would invite somebody who doesn't tell the truth? That's the difference. Oh, we need the MAGA. We need Republican point of view. Fine. Yeah. But when you've got a panelist who's going to lie, who's going to gaslight the rest of you, to me, that's a line that should be drawn. Or at the very least, any panelist should be told, we are going to be fact-checking you in real time. So if you say something that is demonstrably false, we are going to call you on it. Just so you know, going into this discussion.
Yeah. No, it's just, the bottom line on that thing. These were Americans that are getting killed, and he had went and stripped them to the bone just about that time. Remember, there was a little less than 2,000 troops there that time, and they funneled them through the one gate. But they're going to blame, because I believe Biden was able to get them to extend it a little bit, because remember, Trump wanted to get us out earlier and all that crap, and then, nowhere ready for it at that time with that at that gate. It's like, and then lastly, so you get to others, thinking about the great general himself, Trump. That one time we had an outpost real close to the border that one time, and the guys had to bug out of there real quick because they're getting overrun. So they had to call in the Zoomies to come in and bomb that place because there was a lot of secret documents and stuff. They couldn't get them out in time while they were getting out. Smarter
Dave,
than the generals, Trump.
I'm running out of time. I want to try to get to... But thank you for the call. Always appreciate it. Thank you for the call. By the way, a little bit of an update. The stock market taking a big dive today. 700 points lost on the Dow, 480 points down on the NASDAQ. Yeah, those tariffs. Let's bring on more tariffs. Let's go back to the phone lines. Paul is on the line from Seattle. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Joe. Yeah. Well, a couple of things that was thinking. You were talking about Elon Musk trying to influence this Supreme Court election in Wisconsin. And now he didn't go there, right? He decided not to go, right?
Well, he took down the post on X that said he was coming. Does that mean he's not coming, or does that mean he doesn't want the post up there that apparently admits that he's about to commit a felony by paying people for their votes? I don't know.
Well,
with Elon, it's hard to say.
I would say that first of all, felony, a violation of federal and undoubtedly Wisconsin state law that Wisconsin governor, what is it? That's Tony Evers, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Could tell the Wisconsin State Police to arrest him. I mean, he has said he's coming to Wisconsin to commit a crime.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so they could arrest him as soon as he steps off the airport, the airport property. He could be arrested for coming to commit a crime. I mean, Elon Musk. I think he doesn't maybe realize this. He has no particular or special official immunities. He's just another. I guess he's a naturalized citizen now, but he can be. And in state laws, state crimes, there's nothing that Trump can do for him. So if he gets himself in hot water by something like this, and I would, if it was the governor of Washington State, if it were Bob Ferguson, I would absolutely urge him to arrest him as soon as he steps off, off of the SeaTac property, because the airports are federal jurisdiction, federal territory. So we'd have to wait till he actually gets off the property. But he's there to commit a crime, and he said that he is. Whether he took that posting down, it was up, and it stated his intention.
Well, I think that sounds like law enforcement at its best. I mean, if you can, without letting her know, cancel a student's visa and then have people with hoodies grab her off the street, why can't you arrest Elon Musk when he says he's coming to your state to commit a crime? I don't know.
Sure. You certainly detain him. And I was going to comment on that real quick, the abduction of this woman. This is seriously dangerous because I was thinking these guys are anonymous. They're wearing masks. They're wearing hoodies, and they're in an unmarked vehicle. Any bystander who saw this and thought that this woman's being abducted, who happened to have a weapon, could pull it out and open up on these people.
That's really interesting, Paul, because one of the people on the text line said that. Well, you can see from the video, unfortunately, this young woman was all by herself because somebody texted in and they said, I'm a guy, and if I saw a young woman being grabbed off the street, he said, I would intervene. Yep. I would assume that she was being kidnapped, which actually is exactly what was happened. She was being kidnapped. Yep. But the video shows they caught her. There was somebody, the person recording the video is clearly inside the building that she is trying to enter, and they're up on what appears to be the second floor or the third floor, and they're shooting the video of what's happening to her from there. But there was nobody. There was nobody around, and she looked so scared and so confused. And they just look like thugs.
With the number of guns in this country, anybody could have gotten that confused, and they would have been within their rights to. You have a right to if somebody's being attacked, another citizen has the right to intervene and on their behalf and try to save them. And I don't think just because these happen to be federal officials, they're committing an abduction as if they're not on official time. If they're not wearing uniforms, they're not on official time. So they don't have their official protection if they don't have that. Well,
they sure. Did you see the video? I mean, they're wearing dark hoodies. They were described as undercover or plain clothes, but they look like a bunch of bank robbers, for God's sake.
Yeah, that's seriously a problem. That's a problem, and that's why you don't just do that, because people can get that confused. This is not an America I ever expected to see in my life. I really didn't. This is beyond. I think it's not a surprise given who the personnel are, but to have the Congress completely abdicate their powers. There's nothing that Trump has done. I don't know if you get David Pepper's perspective, but today he was talking about how Trump's executive order on voting is absolutely meaningless. And he goes through the constitutional reasons, but pretty much everything Trump has done is absolutely meaningless. He doesn't have the power to do what he's done. But the Congress, and as our Senator, Washington State Senator Patty Murray was saying, the cuts that they're making were not cut from the appropriations in the CR. So it's like these are supposedly cuts to all of these programs, but the Congress still allocated the money. So where is the money going? Yeah. It's going to a big slush fund for Donald Trump.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's why he loves Elon, because Elon keeps writing those big checks. Paul, I got to get to a break. We are going to be right back after this, and we are going to talk with some folks from Anti-Cruelty and Mark Drugs about our Pet of the Month after this.
Now back to Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
Oh, man, have we ever needed a Pet of the Month the way we need it today? Just a little bit of good cheer going into the weekend. Darlene Duggan is here with Anti-Cruelty. She is the president and CEO. Craig Badagowski is here from Mark Drugs, where you can go for all of your holistic pet needs. Darlene, how are you doing, first off?
I am doing well. It's beautiful weather in Chicago today, so
it's so weird.
Nice. Yes, exactly. So everything is going great. Thank you, Joan.
And Craig, how are you?
Oh, it's great to be back. Great to be talking about Donnie, this beautiful little pup that we're going to be discussing very soon here.
Before we get into Donnie, I have two warnings. First of all, a cuteness warning, because Donnie is one of the cutest dogs you will ever see. So if you are triggered by cute dogs, do not look at Donnie's picture on either the Mark Drugs site or the WCPT site, because he's about as cute as they come. Apparently, he is also a puppy, and we all know, at least intellectually, we know that puppies require more training, more patience, and a lot more interaction than perhaps if you adopt a senior dog. Craig, any advice that you give people who come in to talk to you about puppies as opposed to seniors?
Well, it's all about patience and stamina, and that's about you having patience and stamina for this. You're absolutely right. Donnie is absolutely adorable. Check him out on the websites, WCPT, Anti-Cruelty, or MarkDrugs.com, and you could see Donnie, and you'll just fall in love. I mean, by the end of our conversation here, I wouldn't be surprised if Donnie is adopted. But, yes, you got to know what you're getting into. And some people are willing to actually put in the effort. And Donnie encapsulates what Anti-Cruelty is all about. Apparently, the original owner just couldn't handle Donnie, and that's okay. You know, sometimes a puppy does require a lot more energy. The puppy has more energy and requires more energy out of you to have the patience to start to get some good habits going, some positive reinforcement, some training is what's going to be needed here. But when you look at Donnie's face, you're just going to fall in love. And all that hard work that you're going to put in to making Donnie the best dog possible is going to pay off in dividends. So really, you just have to know when it comes to a dog this young and peppy that you're going to need to keep up and give Donnie the stimulation required and the positive reinforcement required to make him a good dog down the road.
Mm-hmm. And Darlene, I want you to talk about how important it is if you can't manage a dog, if you really have taken on more than you can chew, or in some instances you lose your job, you lose your housing, how important it is to bring a pet that you have to give up to a shelter. I follow a lot of different shelter accounts and dog accounts on my Instagram, and so many times I read, this dog was found as a stray. This dog was found tied up outside a restaurant. This dog was found in a box outside of a hardware store. There really is no judgment from a shelter, is there, if you bring a dog in? You would rather have that than have them put in a box and left outside a hardware store.
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right, Joan. Certainly at Anti-Cruelty, no judgment. That's what we're here for. That is how we are here to support the community. So we prefer, it's actually better for the pet. It's better for the people. They get, a more finite goodbye with the animal as well. And there really is no judgment. Like you said, sometimes life happens to us. And even if we have the best of intentions with our pets, cats, dogs, bunnies, rabbits, whatever it is, life gets in the way sometimes. And we certainly understand that. And that's the whole point of anti-cruelty, is to be able to support the total human-animal bond. And sometimes if that bond breaks, we're there to support as well.
This is sort of a changing subject here. I'm on the email list for anti-cruelty. I've also done the foster training. Bray and I are both fosters for anti-cruelty. I got an email saying that BARK registration is open, but you have a new location. First of all, what is BARK?
Yeah, so BARK is one of our largest fundraisers of the year. It is a fun walk with or without your dog, but most people bring their pets. And this year, it's going to be on May 31st in Lincoln Park. We've actually moved locations, so we're pretty excited for a new location. We're going to be having a lot of fun. There's going to be vendors and food and music and entertainment, and of course a lovely walk through the neighborhood or through Lincoln Park with our furry canines.
And how is this a fundraiser? How are there things to buy? What is the ticket cost?
Yeah, so all of our information is up on our website. But basically, you get pledges to walk, or you raise money to walk on behalf of the animals. So that's the way that it becomes a fundraiser for our organization. Get your friends together. You can create a team. You can make a friendly competition in the office of who can raise the most money or who can walk the most miles. It's a lot of fun, no matter how many dogs you have or how many dogs you don't have. It's a great fundraiser for our organization.
And I noticed in this email, the early bird ticket price, which, as we know, those of us who regularly attend fundraisers, the early bird tickets are always the most economical. They are only on sale until April 1st, and then the price
just a few more days.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Just a few more days to get that lower entry fee. If everybody wants to get to our website to register, now is the time to do so.
That's wonderful. And I know I sort of distracted myself, as apparently I do quite often. But I also want to give a little bit more information about Donnie. For those of you who don't have a computer where you can pull up the picture right now, Donnie appears to be kind of would you say he's little, a medium? I always think, to me, a big dog isn't a big dog unless it's at least 80 or 90 pounds. And I know that's not how most people think about it. So how would you describe Donnie's size?
Then in your definition, I would say he's definitely going to be a medium-sized dog. He is, he looks like a good old-fashioned mutt to me. I think Mom was a mix and Dad was likely a mix, and so I think there's lots going on for Donnie here, which often those mutts make the best dogs ever.
Oh, yeah.
So it's hard to predict. It's hard to say exactly how big he's going to get. But looking at him, seeing him in the shelter, he's about 6 months old now. I would say he's going to be around 40 to 50 pounds, probably somewhere in that range, which I think for most people we consider a medium-sized dog. So he's going to be a good-sized dog, not too big, not too small.
And I know, Craig, you have you've said in some of your spots that run here on CPT that you think that a lot of times mixed up dogs tend to be healthier. Talk about that.
Well, comes down to genetics. You know, when you're getting multiple good traits out of multiple types of dogs, you're just likely to get a healthier dog. It's the ones that are purebred over long periods of time. Sometimes recessive genes get together and cause some problems. I'm not going to take anything away from like a Frenchie. A beautiful dog can be a wonderful dog, a wonderful pet, but it's something that because of how they've been bred over the years, they have problems with their respiratory system because they simply have, physically shorter noses. So their sinus cavities are much smaller. So they end up getting respiratory issues. Not to say that purebreds, there's something necessarily wrong with them. It's just the fact that. But
I've heard so many stories of people who think they're buying from a reputable breeder. And, it seems like purebred dogs so often, this breed has trouble with their hips, or this breed has trouble, with their, what do they call it, brachiocephalic, those smushed noses.
And exactly.
Yeah.
The nose is simply shorter than it would have, with all these dogs, all these canines. They come from wolves. Even a tiny Chihuahua has ancestry from wolves. Now, a lot of different breeding and mixing and matching have gone on before you get from a wolf to a Chihuahua. However, when it comes to exactly what you're mentioning, that shorter nose is something that can be a problem and often leads to certain respiratory issues, more likely to get infections, more likely to have problems with allergies and whatnot. So yeah. Now, again, not to say there's anything wrong with purebreds. There are people who love them, and there's actually purebreds that are in need of adoption. The point I'm trying to make is that when there are so many animals out there who need a home that are already here, even this little pup Donnie, this beautiful little Donnie needs a home, and there's also older, more mature dogs who are house trained. If it doesn't have those papers, who cares? What's more important is how great the dog makes as a companion animal, as part of the family. So really, in my book, I'm almost seeking out some sort of mutt. I mean, with a lot of them, you'll often see dominant characteristics of a certain breed. That's all fine and good, but I want folks to just keep in mind that adoption is just the best option ever. There's already an animal out there who can use a home, and if you're looking for, a high-energy pup like Donnie, or if you're looking for a little more laid-back, maybe a senior dog that can make the most wonderful companion pets, I do encourage people to go out and look for adoption. And if there is a certain breed that you are more of a fan of, maybe there's one at Anti-Cruelty, but if you do your research, you're going to be able to find an animal that looks how you want it to look, that actually needs a home. So really, I encourage people to adopt. Don't let the fact that an animal happens to be a mixed breed, a mutt, because it's very likely they tend to actually have a longer lifespan and they tend to have fewer health issues. So keep that in mind. Purebred, no problem. There's a place for them, and there are purebreds out there that are in need of adoption, and you can find certain websites that have purebreds for adoption.
And a lot of times there are rescues that are devoted to a certain breed. You can, and a lot of times, like a lot of the shelters will know, they get a dog who appears to be a purebred this or a purebred that. They'll call Lab Rescue or English Mastiff Rescue, and sometimes those people will take those dogs. So even if you have your heart set on a certain breed, you can still rescue. It doesn't mean you have to go to a breeder. We're going to take a break, and I actually have a medical question for you, Craig. Some dogs seem to naturally, or maybe it's not natural, maybe there's a problem, I don't know. Some dogs seem to have drippy eyes, and I want to talk to you about why that is and whether or not it's something that needs to be treated. Craig Budagowski with Mark Drugs, Darlene Duggan from Anti-Cruelty. It is Pet of the Month. We'll be back with more after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
This is our Pet of the Month segment. Donnie is the beautiful boy that you can find on the Mark Drugs website and the WCPT820.com website. He is, by Darlene's estimation from Anti-Cruelty, he's about 6 months old. He looks like a doll baby, but he's a puppy. So if you have the time and the effort to train and you're very patient, he could be the dog for you. Right before we went to break, I asked Craig from Mark Drugs if he would weigh in on the question of dogs with drippy eyes. Is that breed related? Does it mean that your dog has allergies? When should it be treated? When shouldn't it be treated? I have lots of questions, Craig.
Sure. Well, it can be breed related. There are certain breeds that are predisposed to getting eye conditions. Now, most likely, it's allergy related. Especially we're sensitive to allergies, and when the seasons change and certain things are in bloom and certain things are not, you might react the same way and might need to take a Claritin sometime during the year in order to help you, from getting watery eyes. This is true for most mammals, but especially canines here. And it's usually nothing to worry about too much. In fact, it probably doesn't need treatment if it is self-limiting and if it's just a certain type of pollen that's in the air that might not be there in a couple months. Bottom line is, if it's watery and clear, it's probably nothing to panic about. If it becomes bothersome, you might want to bring it to the attention of your veterinarian. Again, I don't think they're necessarily going to treat anything if it's clear, runny, watery discharge. Now, if it gets to the point where it becomes cloudy discharge, if it becomes whitish or opaque, that might be something to consider bringing the animal in for an evaluation sooner than later. There's a chance there's an eye infection, not likely, but there's a possibility. The darker and thicker it gets, the more likely it is that there's some sort of bacterial conjunctivitis where the animal can benefit from some sort of treatment, typically just an eye drop that contains an antibiotic, sometimes lubricants, but not usually to wash out the bacteria after it's killed with an antibiotic. At Mark Drugs, we actually deal with sometimes the opposite problem, chronic dry eye in animals when they don't produce enough tears. And we might use an autoimmune modulating drug like cyclosporin or tacrolimus that we make in our laboratory at Mark Drugs that will actually help the animal produce more tears. But when it comes to having kind of weepy eyes, if it is free running, if it's not too bothersome, if it's perfectly clear, you probably don't have to worry about it, and it's almost like a watch and see. Make sure it stays that way or gets better, because as the allergy season progresses and whatever they might be sensitive to goes away, it will most likely resolve on its own. But when you get crusts, when you get thickness, opaque discharge, whitish discharge, or any other color, that's a sign of an infection, and that should probably be treated sooner than later. A couple other things you could do is just make sure that the animal's well groomed too. Like sometimes you forget to kind of take care of the face and kind of cutting hair around the eyes like a groomer would do just to kind of clear stuff out might be a good idea too. But bottom line, if it's clear and runny, don't worry so much. Bring it up to your veterinarian when you get a chance. But if it's cloudy and thick, that's when I would bring the animal in for an appointment.
Okay, sounds good. Something else I wanted to ask Darlene about. It is now the end of March. Darlene, are we already in kitten season?
Oh, we are getting ready for it, Joan. We have seen the first few litters of spring coming through, so it's not the onslaught just yet, but that is really going to happen any day now. Typically, as the days get longer, that is when the cats start to reproduce. So all of those kitties that are out there on the street, strays, ferals, what have you, they start producing their first litters are born about 60 days after that. So any day now, we're going to get inundated with the kittens. We've been preparing for it at the shelter. We've been ramping up our fosters. We have been preparing with special resources. We're getting ready.
Mm-hmm. And for the people who foster, I've taken the kitten training, And I know that you generally, depending upon what fosters are needed, sometimes you can take in a mother cat and their kittens, and then you kind of have to, keep an eye on things and make sure they have the proper bedding and everything. And then there's those people who are experienced enough to actually take in neonate kittens that don't have a mom. But I was amazed when I did that training. It isn't just, like if you take in a mom and her babies, you keep an eye on things, but basically mom is going to do most of the work. But if you take in neonate kittens, you have to know what you're doing, don't you?
Absolutely. And we provide all of the training, but you're absolutely right. When kittens come in with moms, moms do all of the work. It's almost like a set and forget. Make sure she's comfortable, make sure mom gets fed and has a little bit of alone time. And she takes care of things. But when they're without mom, they're a lot needier. And especially those little bitty babies, they don't really know how to eat without support. They don't really know how to go to the bathroom without support. You have to help them regulate their temperature. So it is kind of an around-the-clock job. Again, we provide the training, we provide support, we provide all of the resources. For kittens that young, we do start them on the kitten milk replacement, so we'll give you all of that. We'll give you a kennel and litter box and other types of food for when they're eating on their own and a little bit older. It is a labor of love to raise those baby kittens, and it really is life-saving, especially when they don't come in without a mother. They don't really stand a chance, and I don't mean to be flippant about that. Without human intervention and without that 24-hour care, they're not going to survive. So we don't keep them in the shelter. We rely heavily on fosters to do that work for us because we just can't provide that kind of one-on-one contact with the kittens. So we need as many fosters as we can for those baby kittens. And like we said earlier, we're at the cusp of kitten season. So now through the end of summer, it is going to be a lot of young babies coming in and needing that support.
I did the training to become an anti-cruelty foster. So did Ray. I'm also part of the anti-cruelty foster Facebook group. What is the best way to reach out to anti-cruelty and say, oh, by the way, I would be happy to help you out when you start getting those kittens in? Should somebody just keep an eye on the Facebook group and see what's posted? Is there somebody at anti-cruelty people can reach out to?
Yeah, so we have a foster department, and I would advise now is probably the best time to make sure that you go through the application process, go through the training now, so that when the kittens start coming in, you are ready to go. All of the information, again, can be found on our website, anticruelty.org, and we monitor that regularly. So anybody who submits an application or an inquiry will reach out to you in a couple hours, essentially, and be able to get that ball rolling.
Well, I'm going to do that because I have a gated off area. I have an extra bed. Slowly but surely, I don't know if Ray knows this, I have been accumulating everything I need to take in. I have a crate. I have a bed. I have all this stuff that when I decided when kitten season came around again, this time I was going to be one of the people who helps out. So
that's wonderful. That's perfect.
Yeah. But sometimes when I try to do things online, I'm computer literate. Okay, don't let anybody say I'm not. But sometimes I get a little confused, and if I can't figure it out, Darlene, I know that you have somebody in charge of your foster department, and I'm going to track them down and have them hold my hand through it.
Absolutely, and we will. You can give us a call, and we will walk you through everything that you need to learn, or need to do, or need to make sure that you've got in place so that you are ready to go. And thank you, Joan. That's so generous of you to foster these biddies for us.
Well, it's a two-way street. They bring a lot of joy any time they foster. One last thing, Craig, before we go. Donnie, our adoptable dog, looks very healthy and very trim, but my little girl, pretty girl, has not lost her cicada weight. She ate her weight in cicadas pretty much every day, and she's a little dog, but she's no longer little dog. She's obese. She's a little bit obese, and I just don't know what to do. I mean, should I buy diet dog food?
Well, that's one way to do it. I mean, she's not going to be able to eat anything that you don't give her. So one thing to think about is, what is she getting that you might not see? So she might be getting into some foods or getting some treats.
So you're saying I have to talk to Ray. I'm
not saying anything in particular, but there might be some unauthorized treats going on, and that could be part of it. But another thing to consider, remember that we've been, it has been cold very recently, so her going outside and getting the exercise that she might get during the summer was limited. So it's both. Just like with humans, it's about calories in, calories out, and how much you're burning. So if it's been cold and she has not been out as much as she would be and playing, and I understand that her and Willow have like kind of opposite.
He's a winter dog.
As far as
she's a summer
when
dog.
They want to go outside. Yeah, exactly. So if it's summertime, hopefully you can get her around the block a little bit more. Even getting her to just interact and burn off some calories is a good idea. But yes, I mean, Hills is just one of many companies that can offer foods that are high in volume but calorie restricted, meaning that she's going to eat. If she's going to eat the same amount of food, physical food, that she would otherwise, but it probably contains a little bit more fiber and other things that will help her feel full and get that sense of satiety without having as many calories. So there are prescription diets out there. They're available at pet stores, but a veterinarian might be a better one to give you a clear idea of a certain brand. But with mammals in general, calorie restriction, but hopefully getting her to feel full, and then you might have to do a little research to see if she's getting any extra calories here and there that you might not be aware of.
Yeah, I think we know who to talk to about that. Plus, you're right. As soon as the weather gets warmer, she and I will be doing a lot more walking than we're doing now because we are both very cold averse. Darlene Duggan, Craig Bodegowski from Mark Drugs, Deerfield and Roselle, thank you both so much for being here. And for those of you who want to take a look at Donnie, go to the Mark Drugs website or the WCPT820.com. Donnie is ready and raring to find his forever home. We're going to take a break for news. We're going to be back with more after this.
Now back to Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I always tell you on Friday that your assignment over the weekend is to find something that brings you joy, something that brings you respite from the stress, the incredible stress of what is happening now. You can't survive if you don't take care of yourself. And I have found the arts provide that release valve for me, whether it's live theater or picking up a new volume of poetry or getting involved in some sort of musical entertainment that really resets me. You know, when you're really involved in the arts, you're not thinking about the latest hysterical public outrage. You're thinking about what is happening at that time. So I thought I would ask two of the people I know who are deeply involved in the arts to talk to me about their work and also what brings them respite. Tony Fitzpatrick, you guys know, he's on all the time, actor, poet, artist, all-around cranky guy who we love unconditionally. And Mark Turcotte, who's a professor at DePaul. And I'm familiar with his work from his book of poetry called Exploding Chippewas. It's not his only work of poetry. And, Mark, I was telling Tony earlier today, I looked up your bio. see if there was something else I wanted to say about you. You have won so many different awards and accolades. I told Tony, if I name them all, we won't have any time to talk.
If you say so, Joan, I'll take your word for it. Yeah.
Always humble. Mark, you interact with young people at DePaul. You also write poetry. Is that what gives you solace and respite and that special Zen place today?
Boy, I don't know. I can't remember what that special Zen place looks or smells or tastes like right now. I got to say, I've been just kind of like laying low. I got to admit, since the election, I just decided it was the best thing I could do for my mental and physical health. And I've been trying to focus on other things like my newly found family and stuff like that. My amazing 19-month-old grandson and things like that. And you mentioned that, poetry, art can be a respite. And I'm finding right now that, man, the poetry that we really need, the art we really need is not exactly a respite. It's like, tearing off the bandage and making us all look. I think that's important right now. I know that's what Tony likes to do. Right, Grumpy?
I could not agree with you more. I'm working on a new collection of poems, and following the comments by Mark Turcotte, I'm always completely humbled by his mindless humility. He's just absolutely the most humble guy in the world. And honestly, without any exaggeration, my favorite living poet, there are two of them. There's Mark Turcotte and there's Ted Kooser. And they are cut from the same cloth, just men who write with a conscience in touch with humanity. And they are the poets that I aspire to be someday. So I think it's necessary, and I think what Mark said is exactly right. I think we have to write our truth and write what we see in front of us, and hold up a mirror. I mean, particularly because I know the three of us, we've discussed this at different times and in different combinations. Me with Joan, me with Mark. We don't recognize the country we live in anymore. It's not the place that it was even a year ago. Even a month ago. I think its responsibility is to say it out loud, and go and share our work, go and hang our work, go and have exhibitions, have readings, go and do poetry readings and speak to those of a like mind and form a coalition and form something that can nudge us back towards sanity, towards salient, humane behavior. Instead of, trying to take over Greenland and, trying to annex Canada. I mean, what kind of crap is that, I mean, we picked a fight with our best friend. We picked a fight with Canada, our ally for as long as we have been a republic, and then, telling Greenland, we're going to just take over, well, kiss my ass.
Even worse, J.D. Vance today saying as he was at the military base, Denmark really doesn't appreciate you. Essentially saying Denmark isn't as good to you as we will be. Like anybody's going to believe anything that J.D. Vance says to them. The people of Greenland have let it be known they don't want us. They don't want us.
Nor should they. Nor should they, because the first thing that will happen if we were to take over Greenland is we would pillage their minerals, their oil, and we would destroy their environment. And Greenland, from an environmentalist standpoint, Greenland is one of those rare places that supports life forms that could not survive anywhere else. I mean, you have off the coast of Greenland, you have the last of the narwhals, which are a whale-like animal with a giant tusk that's kind of like think of a seagoing unicorn, and you got a narwhal. There are amazing species that can only survive there. And you know what this is. It's a land grab.
We probably get Eric and Don up there with their guns. That's probably one trophy they haven't bagged yet. Plus, you also forgot, Tony, if we take over Greenland, then they get to start paying a lot more for their health care, which some of them probably won't be eligible for. And they can experience the joy of a medical bankruptcy. Come on, list the whole package here.
I have to go. I have to go and have another heart procedure on Monday. Were I in Canada, were I back in Paris, like where I was when we were shooting Patriot, you go to the hospital, they don't hand you a bill on the way out.
I know.
And what I have gone through, finding a supplemental policy along with Medicare is just unbeliivable. I mean, it's incredible what we pay to stay alive. You think Greenlanders are going to want to, adapt to that kind of social health care system? I don't think so.
Mark,
I think they're going to want to stay as far away from it as they possibly can.
Mark, when you're in the classroom, what kinds of things are your students saying, if anything, about the world we live in now?
Oh, truthfully, I think they're really in shock. And I love my students, and I spent a lot of time defending American late teenagers and 20-somethings and 30-somethings even, because they get a lot of badgering. I spent a lot of time defending them, but I gotta say, there's a part of me that wants to know why they are so shocked. Because I think everything was evident, and a lot of them got really, just like a lot of left-leaning people, just got really cynical. I know really smart, and I mean like smart, genius-type young Americans who just decided not to vote, and it seems like criminal, it's almost,
Because I know that there are people who love Donald Trump, and they always will. And they don't, they'll excuse anything, and they don't want to hear anything that might dissuade them. Those people I've just written off. But this last election, there were tens of millions of even registered Democratic voters who didn't vote. And I don't understand that. I really don't. What do they tell you is the reason why?
Well, it's always somebody else they know that didn't vote. You know what I mean? I mean, and then I'm in my classroom too, so we have a limit, we're not really supposed to be delving into these subjects too deeply, but this is like quick discussions between classes, or while we're waiting for class to start, or when I see them on the sidewalk somewhere, or I just overhear them talking to each other across the room before a class starts, but it always seems, nobody really seems to be the one who didn't vote. It always seems to be a bunch of people they don't know. And that's often the case, It's but before I get too disparaging, or sound like I'm being too disparaging, I also have like a lot of hope that I didn't have during the first term of Anus Orange, these generations are eventually going to bail us out of this stuff, and help us see our way out of what we've been put into. They're going to, they're already the first generation in a long time that's been willing to take to the streets, and you have to admire that, so I don't want to just spend too much time talking about the people who just seem to have their head in the sand, or they're just, that stance of just being like above it all is just so cliche and so 70s. I grew up in the 70s, during that, me and Tony, that age of apathy when, Everybody conquered the world in the 60s, and they left it to us teenagers in the 70s, and we just we're twiddling our thumbs a lot. You know what I mean? So, we can't brag too much about what we accomplished, but it sure seems familiar to a lot of that, self-involved stuff, that happened in the 70s. But, things change. I've been around long enough now that I know, things go in cycles, things change. You always think you've seen the worst until tomorrow. And then sometimes you think you've seen the best, and then tomorrow comes, So it works both ways. So I'm hopeful. I don't sound like it, but I'm hopeful.
Well, guys, we need to take a real quick break. I'm talking with artist, actor, poet Tony Fitzpatrick, professor at DePaul, and also poet Mark Turcotte. We'll be right back after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I'm joined by Tony Fitzpatrick, who is an observer of all things politics Chicago, also an actor and a poet and an artist, and DePaul professor and poet Mark Turcotte are here. And I want these guys to explain what it is about the arts that makes our souls sing. Tony, I know, Mark, has... I asked him if he would pull a poem that he might read to us. Tony, you got that handy?
Yeah, I got it handy.
It's let's have our souls sing a little bit.
This poem is about the first person I ever knew who died of AIDS. He died of it so early that they were not even calling it AIDS yet. And I met him in rehab for drugs and alcohol. And this person, with the last couple of years of his life, shepherded more people into recovery. In my book, The Man's a Saint, So this poem is called Truck. Charlie hauled peaches from Georgia to San Diego. Pears and apples from Yakima, Washington to Lincoln, Nebraska, and Rock Island, Illinois. Perishables on a clock, 24 hours, 46 hours. Black speed sprinkled into the endless river of thermos black coffee, hands shaking off the knobs. He played Charlie Rich and George Jones songs on his 8-track. Under the pitch-black Montana skies, his eyes blurred, and he saw comet grease and meteor showers under the arc of starlights. He pulled over and slept. He'd seen it all, man. Hunger, thirst, rest, and half the angels in a skittering dervish on the 3,365 miles between Oregon and Boston. Every mile marker and way station from A1A to Pacific 1. He tried not to think about all of the truck stop sex, the sex he gave, the sex he got, and he wondered if he'd ever stop shaking or recognize the phantom in the mirror again. He ground his teeth to nubs his clothes barely fit and were damn near falling off. The older over-the-road guys would say to him in a hush, "This is where you disappear, brother. This is how." Charlie found himself driving on Pacific 1 toward Escondido, and he noticed the ocean. He was startled to realize he'd never stepped in it. He never felt the warmth of the Pacific on his skin. He pulled his 18-wheeler over, left his boots in the rig, and he walked through the warm sand, weeping a child's tears right into the surf and the linden-like motion of the tide. And for the first time in his life, he sang, "Motor Gypsy, Fly."
Oh, Tony.
Nicely done.
Very nice. Very nice. What a wonderful tribute to your friend.
Is that new, Tony, or have I just not read it before? Brand new. It's brand new. Yeah. It's from my next collection, which will be out in October. Oh, that's right. You said that. Yeah, man.
Tony,
as usual, dude.
It, I don't know. Maybe you would disagree. But it seems to me you've been at your most prolific in recent years. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. You know, I mean, a lot of it has to do with getting sober again, you know, and feeling like, you know, there's only so much time, you know, so you want to get right to it. And the next book I've really, it's, you know, I've been trying to figure out what it is. I mean, it's a lot about the things I saw that shaped how I saw the world and who I later became. And I decided to write about subjects that I used to avoid writing about and talking about, you know, and I really think it's important that you look the ghosts of your past in the face, or else they'll eat you alive, you know.
What do you think about that, Mr. Turcotte?
Oh, I've been eaten alive many times by my ghosts, even when I look them right.
Oh yeah,
they're always there.
One of the biggest influences and greatest books I ever read was Exploding Chippewas. You know.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, you know those poems, which you know, which start with this bitterly ironic and you know, lead pipe true statement. Back when I used to be an Indian, I mean, they just absolutely kind of destroyed me in the best way. They made me think about what it is to be that thing that you are in the world to your marrow, and to say it loud. And I just had nothing but admiration for Mark Turcotte and his writing.
Yeah. Mark,
well, thanks,
would you
Tony.
agree with Tony that basically your best work comes, I mean, it's kind of a, you know, a cliche, write what you know, but is it a cliche because it's really true?
Well, I always try to, I'm hesitant always to use words like, you know, especially the word truth, you know, when people start talking about writing their own truth, and to say, you know, write what you know, I think is an obvious thing. But I've also heard really smart writers say, maybe we should be writing about what we're trying to know. Ooh. You know, a little bit, you know, spend a little bit of time on that, you know, and I think that's the kind of thing that can keep us humble, because I'll tell you what, I learn more lessons when people point out to me what I don't know than what I do know. You know what I mean? And what I don't know tends to be a lot longer list. But
I think that's true for all of us.
Yeah. Could I pay a little tribute back to Tony and read a quick poem? One of those poems.
Absolutely, Mark.
Talking about?
I didn't say anything because I didn't communicate with you earlier, and I didn't want to leave you in a strange position.
Yeah. That's okay. I just thought of this one instantly, in this moment. So just quickly, Tony's talking about this series of poems I wrote that begin with the line, back when I used to be Indian. Well, we can talk about that, what that means another time. But I have a poem that I wrote that is about me finally leaving West Texas to drive to Chicago to begin living here in the early 1990s. And so it's like my beginnings in Chicago in this poem. And I think it's really pertinent to this moment because of what we're doing right now. And it's called Go. And the thing I love about that is I just discovered that my grandson's favorite word is go. And I think that's an amazing word for a child to have as their favorite word right now. So this is called Go. Back when I used to be Indian, I am gripping the wheel with both fists, plunging headlights northward out of a long and heavy, syrupy night. Texas behind me, the Anadarko Basin, Will Rogers Turnpike behind me, Tulsa and the Jesus radio, praise be. I leave 1,000 ghosts howling in the rear view mirror, the dank honky-tonks behind me, easy heated flesh, flickering tongues forked with poison, empty hands, boots scooting rodeo queens, stagger in red taillight glow. I stop to fill her up, drowse over one last plate of biscuits with sausage gravy, a bottomless cup of coffee, and I'm gone again. just west of St. Louis, a nodding hitchhiker catches me with his sign that says, Mother, Funeral, Detroit. As he climbs in the car, I say, man, you can sleep all the way to Chicago. Ahead, the pavement shimmers, ancient Mississippi flows. I cross over. Silent sun and morning dew make grassy stars. The hum of rubber on the road, the telephone poles. Lines lead to lines to the edge of the city where we both wake up. Praise be, and I swear I hear poets singing on the radio.
Wow. What a treat for us. A poem from Tony, a poem from Mark Turcotte. We're going to take a real quick break, and we're going to talk about this when we come back.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Every weekday afternoon from 2 to 5 p.m. on WCPT 820.
I have just made the decision that Tony Fitzpatrick and Mark Turcotte are going to be here every Friday reading poems to us, because I can't think of a better way to wrap up a week and head into the weekend. Mark, that was amazing.
Thanks, Joan. You're amazing. Tony's amazing. And I love that offer, but I don't think I can live up to it.
That offer is worth the paper it's not written on, Mr. Turcotte.
Okay. All right.
But Mr. Fitzpatrick, what did you think when Mark was reading that poem?
Like every time I've ever heard Mark Turcotte read a poem, it shakes me to my core and it reminds me that, for every history we have in this country, there is individualist fingerprints. And every time I hear a Mark Turcotte poem, I learn something and I get a history lesson and a humanity lesson.
Yes.
Thanks, Tony.
And that's what I love about the best poetry. The best poetry, it's like I'm temporarily stepping into somebody else's life or seeing through somebody else's eyes in a way that, one of the things that I always tell guests who are coming on this show is, all the facts about what is happening are important, but what really makes somebody understand a story is when you talk about the human perspective. You can say, well, this happened to this department or this happened to this department, but when you talk about the fact that, I'm going to tell you the name of somebody and they've got 2 kids and, now they're out of work or now they can't get insurance for one of their kids and their kids has a medical condition. That emotional kind of way of describing anything resonates so much more deeply than simply a recitation of this happened at this time on this date and is expected to have these consequences. And I think that's what poetry does. It gets beyond the surface and really gets into the part of you where you feel things. That's how it strikes me. How does it strike you, Mark?
Well, I think that's a pretty good encapsulation of things. I was going to try and offer a recommendation, and that is my friend, the Puerto Rican-American poet Martina Espada, who does that sort of encapsulation of moments kind of better than anybody in America right now, and consistently. And he recently had a new poem out. It's called "The Snake," and in it he describes those moments in these recent Trump, rallies where he's done his stupid recitation of an old Al Wilson song, which is also an Aesop's fable, and I think also an African-American folktale about the snake, that turns on the, and it's so, it's so corny the way he does it. And he just lumps every unwanted immigrant person into this category of the snake that will turn on you and bite you. And then what Espada does in his poem, it's a long poem, I can't read it, but he shows you all of that. And the important word is shows. He shows that happening. He shows that crowd. And then he ends the poem by pointing his lens at the so-called snakes, who are basically children working the killing floors of a slaughterhouse in Nebraska, and their hoses, like snakes, are spewing rivers of, blood and stuff, and the fangs lurking in the murk of early morning are the machines that they have to face every day. And by showing us those real human beings, he does the job of saying, who is the snake here? Who is the victim of a snake here? And it becomes really easy. And that's what you can do, like with Tony's art. It just, it freezes things. A poem or a piece of art can capture and offer an examination of our times, right? And claims, certainly the claims that are being made about our times. And then art and a good poem or a well-made poem shows rather than simply tells. And it reflects in a manner that other mediums don't usually accomplish. And I think, that's kind of the ultimate purposes of this stuff, and in that way it can give a certain kind of respite. It's not, sending us, into the fields with butterflies and unicorns and stuff, It's about real stuff, but it's also giving us that little taste of hope. And it's also, taking this moment that someone else is trying to portray the world as and examining it and kind of undoing it. Freezing it in time, So, yeah, sorry, I'm being a little wordy there, but
No, you're not. This is radio. We love wordy. Wordy works for us.
Radio is my best medium.
Tony, when you really want to just escape, is there a play or a television show or a movie or a book? What is that for you? Maybe it's birding.
Sometimes it's birding. What I find a great deal of respite in now, and what also I honestly think that the most hopeful thing that one can do is to write a poem or paint a picture or write a song, to engage in something. What I really have loved reading lately, and almost exclusively have done nothing but read poetry. I've been reading a lot of Ted Kuser's poems. I've been rereading Mark's poems. I've been reading William Carlos Williams, John Dos Passos, John
Jim Harrison. On that list. Yeah.
Say what now?
I'm sorry. I'm going to bet Jim Harrison is on your list.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I never had any idea that John Steinbeck was as funny as he was. I read Travels with Charlie, which, I read that on the run up to the last election. And they were having the same kind of trepidation and the same kind of niggling doubt that the American body politic was on the way up to our last election. And it kind of reaffirmed the idea that if we don't learn from history, as a cliche goes, we're doomed to repeat it. But the greatest thing, the most revolutionary thing that artists can do is to create and make art, to put as much of it in the world as you can. That is actually raging against the dawning of the light, choosing to affirm something rather than to trash it or badmouth it or tear it down or treat it with negativity. The creative instinct, I believe, is what will save us as human beings.
I think so too.
That.
And that Dylan Thomas poem, it's the second line that's a little bit less well known that I really love, and I'm trying. Sorry, you guys are relying on my memory now, and that's always a real rough proposition. But it talks about being old and how we're, and we're not. We're going to rage and we're going to be brave in our older years, and that's That's what I like. That's the goal that I have set for myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm glad you two ragers are along on this journey with me. We've got to wrap up now, but this has been wonderful,
really quick,
guys.
John?
What?
Yeah, that line is old age should burn and rave at close of day.
There you go. That's me, Mr. Turcotte.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm a raging old agey person. Anyway, Mark Turcotte, professor at DePaul. Among many books, Exploding Chippewas is really probably where you start. Tony Fitzpatrick, you have seen him on stage, on your television sets, on the movie screen, and his art and his poetry are second to none. Thank both of you so much for being here today. This was just what we needed.
Thank you, Joan. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good luck, Tony. Good luck with things.
Yeah, good luck with things on Monday.
All right, man.
Okay. We are going to be right back and wrap things up with one last interview after this.
Don't turn that dial. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, returns right now.
A fair balance where the facts come out.
On WCPT 820.
Before the show started today, I got a chance to do an interview with Alex Eisenstadt. Alex Eisenstadt is a senior political reporter at Axios, but he has a new book out, Revenge, the Inside Story of Trump's Return to Power, and it has some jaw-dropping anecdotes in it. It is the campaign, this most recent Trump campaign for president that he covers. Listen to this interview. I'm talking to Alex Eisenstadt, who is a reporter at Axios, a senior political reporter, but that's not why he's here today. Alex has a new book out. It's called Revenge, the Inside Story of Trump's Return to Power. Alex somehow, and we're going to ask him this, got access to 300 different people who spoke to him. We are talking about people inside Mar-a-Lago, inside Trump Force One, and also inside the courtroom. Alex, welcome. How are you today?
Good. How are you? I conducted 300 interviews, but there weren't 300 people. But
okay. So some of the people you talked to more than once. Good. Clarify that. But,
I went back to people many times.
Even if you got 10 interviews, how did you? I don't know that Donald Trump has any deep love for Axios. So how did you get inside?
Well, what I did was I went to people. I started writing this book in February of 2023, and I told people who work for Trump, who work around Trump, who are donors, allies, members of Congress, I said, look, I want to write a book, a fly-on-the-wall account of the 2024 campaign. I think it's going to be an historic campaign. I think it's going to be an interesting campaign. I want to document behind the scenes what happens so that readers can feel like they're there, like they're watching a movie. And I want you to help me out. And I went to those people, and some of them said no, they didn't want to help me out. And then others said yes. And I think that those people who said yes understood that this is going to be an historic campaign. They understood it was going to be a dramatic campaign. I don't think any of us could predict that it was going to be as dramatic a campaign as it was. But they wanted to help me tell that story. And so those people kind of used me as a daily journal. And I would talk to them daily, weekly. I would talk to them very, very regularly. And they helped me paint a picture of what went on behind the scenes in this campaign. And I hope I've conveyed that to readers.
Well, give us one particular snapshot of an anecdote, of an incident, of an occurrence somewhere.
Well, one of the things I talk about in this book is just how real the assassination attempt against Donald Trump was from Iran. Iran badly wanted to kill Trump. And things reached a head in late summer, early fall, when the Secret Service warned Trump that there were teams of Iranian agents who had surface-to-air missiles that could be used to down his personal plane, otherwise known as Trump Force One, either upon takeoff or upon landing. And so Trump and his team took matters into their own hands, and what they did was they secretly put him on a private Gulfstream G6 plane owned by one of his donor friends, while they put Trump's staff on Trump Force One, and this caused a furor among Trump's staff, who were fearful and angry that they were being used as bait. And that was just one incident of what was going on with Iran at that time. They were hacking the campaign's phones. They were infiltrating their iPhones, their systems. And what also happened was you had Secret Service would tell staff as they were boarding the plane to duck as they were going in. And that illustrated the level of fear about Iran launching an attack on either Trump or his staffers.
That is breathtaking. That really is incredible. And here's what I don't understand. Maybe you have some insight into this, Alex. I think, I love Trump. I'm working to get him reelected. I know he's got these death threats, so he's using this other plane. And yet I'm supposed to get on the plane that may be shot out of the air? Who does that?
Well, so staffers, they boarded the plane, and what happened was Trump took his own motorcade to his G6 Gulfstream jet. Staffers took their own motorcade, thinking that Trump was in their motorcade. They get there, but they get to the plane. They board the plane. They board Trump Force One. They're waiting for him to enter. They're waiting for him to get to the window seat that he's always at with a little desk on it. The plane door is shut, and he's not there. And so they're upset, and so they go up to one of the leaders of the campaign who's on this plane with them, and they say, "What's going on?" And the campaign leader tells them, "Look, folks, this is nothing but a exercise for how things might be in the future." And that flight was filled with gallows humor. It was weird. It was a weird flight. If you talk to people who were on it, they were unhappy about it. And it became something of campaign lore going forward. And it became known as the ghost flight.
Okay, again, how do you not, as soon as that plane lands, walk off, find Susie Wiles somewhere and say, "This is ridiculous, I quit"?
Well, no one quit, but people were unhappy about it, and they told me about it.
Wow.
And it showed up in my book.
That is unbelievable. And if there is anything that speaks to his character, I think you have just described it. The fact that he was willing to put a plane full of people at risk to save his own skin. I think it's also interesting what you were talking about is Iran infiltrating phones. We happen to be in the middle of Signalgate. And one of the arguments out of the White House is, they might have used personal phones. Yeah, it might have been a third-party app. But no, there was no infiltration. And I don't know if you heard Malcolm Nance, who's former military intelligence. He went on the radio the other day saying, of course those phones are compromised. We would do the same thing to them. It's just unbelievable. Okay, tell me something from inside Mar-a-Lago.
Well, there's a scene in this book where, you rewind back to Biden's State of the Union in 2024, okay? Biden is still running for re-election at that point. It's early 2024. He gives this speech in which he says that Trump, if he is elected, is going to focus on revenge and retribution. Trump is sitting there with his staff in the library room at Mar-a-Lago. They're doing live True Social reaction to Trump's speech, to Biden's speech. Biden uses this line about revenge and retribution, and Trump tells the staff, there will be no revenge, there will be no retribution, wink, wink. And he's being sarcastic about it because Trump knows that revenge and retribution are going to be part of his White House. He made it part of his campaign, and it turned out to be the game plan for his White House, and you're seeing that manifest itself now in things like, for example, his purge at the DOJ, where Trump has purged anyone who had any connection whatsoever to do with the January 6th investigation.
Some of the people you talk to, are they still in Trump's administration? Are some of them in the White House?
Well, look, I don't want to go into who my sources were on this book. You know, I work hard to protect them.
I guess what I'm asking is it possible that you will learn going forward insider information that might not be available to other reporters? Are those conduits, some of them at least, still open?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question, to be honest with you. But what I will tell you is that every day, me and my coworkers at Axios are working hard, and I know other reporters are working hard and to develop sources that can help them pull back the curtain and provide readers a sense of what's really going on beyond the sort of day-to-day public facing of what you're seeing publicly come out of the White House, to pull back the curtain and say, here's how power is being used, here's what's really playing out behind the scenes.
I have a question that I've wondered about. You know, some of Trump's rallies were pretty off the wall. I'm thinking of the one where he said, you don't really want to ask questions. You know, we're just going to enjoy the music for like 38 minutes. Is that because they were so confident they were going to win? Did they believe that they had this election sewn up?
I always believed there was an undercurrent of confidence from the Trump campaign. They always felt good about their prospects. They felt that Biden was weak. They came to feel that Harris was weak, and they always felt confident of their numbers. You know, you get to mid-October, and the Trump campaign had internal polling data showing that Trump had a very solidified lead, that it was hard for his numbers to move backwards. And if you look at their analysis, it was right. You know, a couple weeks later, there was this Madison Square Garden event. Your listeners will remember that Tony Hinchcliffe, who's a stand-up comic, gets up on stage, says some insulting things about Puerto Ricans. People thought that this would be the end of the campaign, that it would sink Trump's prospects with Puerto Ricans, Hispanic voters, who, of course, Trump had been trying to make inroads with. And, of course, it ended up not making a difference. And if you look at the final tallies, Trump ended up making gains among minority voters. And so there was always this undercurrent of confidence in the campaign. They always felt like they had the voters that they needed to have, and that not only that, but they were making inroads with minority voters, urban voters, people who are traditionally in the Democratic column.
Wow. I can't wait to get my hands on your book, Alex. Alex Eisenstadt's book is Revenge, the inside story of Trump's return to power. He's at Mar-a-Lago. He's in court. He's on Trump Force One with the people who have spoken with him. He's also a senior political reporter at Axios. Alex, this is just some really incredible stuff. Thank you for reporting this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So, again, the book is Revenge, the inside story of Trump's return to power. And it sounds like what he shared is just the tip of the iceberg of what was going on in the Trump campaign. But not enough to get anybody to leave his side. God. Okay. Again, that is going to do it for me. I am going to see you, of course, on Monday. I hope you will join me then. We're going to do one of our popular media segments. Mark Jacob, Jennifer Schulze are going to join me in the 3 to 4 o'clock hour to do a media assessment. And then on Tuesday, remember, David Hochberg will be here to answer your questions. Starting on Monday, I'll keep an eye on the text line. You can text me in any questions that you want to ask David if you can't call in, and I'll start putting them all together for his interview on Tuesday. Driving it home with Patty Vasquez is next. Dan Schaefer is going to be with her. And she's also going to be talking to somebody from Idaho and somebody from Plainfield, Illinois. And tomorrow on The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Ben Wickler, the guy who texted out that Elon Musk was committing a felony under Wisconsin law, causing Elon Musk to rapidly pull down his text about coming to Wisconsin and giving out a couple $1 million. Yahoo! Yeah, Ben Wickler is going to join Edwin, as is Jill Wine-Banks and Tom Skilling. Tom Skilling's going to be joining Edwin. What a bang-up show he's got tomorrow from 1 to 4. Okay, you've got the same homework I give you every weekend. You got to do something that makes you feel refreshed and renewed and a little bit happy, okay? Have a great evening and a great weekend, my friends. And Henry, thank you for filling in the studio at the last minute. Always appreciate that. It was a pleasure working with you. That's going to do it for me, folks. Good night.